Today, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite arcade racing games, Virtua Racing. When it came to arcade-style racing games in the 1990s, Sega found great success in the genre with Virtua Racing in 1992 and later on with Daytona USA in 1994. At the time, it just felt so cool to sit in one of those cabinets with a steering wheel and pedal. Besides the blocky graphics for Virtua Racing, everything else about it felt realistic, at least for someone who never sat in a real racing car before. Virtua Racing eventually was ported to the Sega Genesis, 32X, Sega Saturn, PlayStation 2, and more recently, the Nintendo Switch in 2019. I'm going to talk about the Switch version and give a casual review without worrying about the technicalities about how this game performs on the Nintendo console. Just from a visual feel alone, Virtua Racing runs very smooth on the Switch. When the vehicle moves, the track and background scenery show no noticeable draw-in effects. What does it mean when a game features bad draw-in? It's basically when parts of the background pop in out of nowhere because the console can't handle the graphics fast enough. But rest assured, the Switch can handle this game just fine. The Switch version only features 3 tracks, which might feel disappointing even though the original arcade version only had 3 tracks as well. But what's there remains fun to drive on and gives appropriate challenges for the skill level. There's a beginner, medium, and an expert course. Personally, I can only win on the beginner course, but I drive well enough to at least complete the Bay Bridge or medium course. Winning is just a matter of practicing the tracks enough to know how to take the turns, as the player can't just hold down the pedal all the time. On the Acropolis or expert track, there's one turn in particular that always feels like a nightmare to take, but that is why they label the track for experts. In any case, all the right sound effects and voices are there to complement the blocky graphics. Is it a problem that the graphics look blocky? No, at this point, Virtua Racing graphics appeal to many nostalgia gamers who want the early 1990s feel. Most gamers who love Virtua Racing wouldn't want it any other way. The controls feel fine as well. Players will hold down the A button to accelerate, while the B button is used to brake. Just be sure to slow down or use the brake button on the turns, since that is the key to beating the time limit in the harder tracks. If the view doesn't feel right, then press the X button in order to change it. I recommend the view that gives a wide view of the track without feeling too far. The default view is fine too, but it is more difficult since the view has a smaller range. What works best for me might not work best for someone else though. With all that said, I want to complain about a few small things. The initial menu is not easy to navigate. I kept getting confused on what button to press. Instead of going straight to the track selection screen, it seems the game takes the player to a demo at first, as if this version was an arcade machine running a demo. I get it, but it's just a little confusing to get to the track selection. Also, there is an online mode available. No one is playing it though, which kinda made me sad. Virtua Racing would make for a great time online, and for people to not take advantage of that feature just seems a little odd. Perhaps the Switch version didn't sell well enough for the online to be populated. Besides those 2 complaints, everything else on Virtua Racing for Switch looks and feels great. For only $7.99 on the eShop, Nintendo gamers could do worse. By the way, when I bought this game for Sega Genesis as a kid, the original retail price was $99.99. I understood why though. The cartridge had a special chip inside of it, which allowed the Genesis to display those beautiful 3D graphics as well as it could, but the port obviously did not look or feel perfect within the limitations of the console. On the Switch, this is a perfect conversion of the great arcade game, minus the arcade cabinet with a steering wheel and pedals. It's not a deep game though, if that makes sense. Sega clearly made this racing game with arcades in mind first. I'll give Virtua Racing on Switch an 8 out of 10.